Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very pleased to have Patrick Tromley as my guest. Let me tell you about Patrick. He tells us that having grown up in the mortgage industry, he had big goals of coming out of college and having that great job. Then the mortgage meltdown hit in 2008, and his life was ended, and he was forced to start his career over. At the next bank he worked at, the FDIC kicked the doors in and shut them down, forcing Patrick to yet again start over. After bouncing around a couple of companies, he had to make a pivotal decision. As a husband and father to 3 boys looking to take control over his own life and future, Patrick moved into the real estate investing full-time. In constant quest for self-development, Patrick hired a mentor. That mentor changed Patrick's focus from making money to doing what his conscience told him. The impact this mindset shift had is indescribable. Patrick moved into alignment with his conscience and became an elite man, husband, father, and leader. This impact was so great that Patrick felt obligated to help 1,000, let's say this differently, to help thousands of people do the same with their lives. Now a mindset and performance coach, Patrick teaches individuals to overcome bad habits and excuses to become undeniable through habits, discipline, fitness, and nutrition. I thought the theme today should be building self-confidence and trust. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Patrick Tromley. Patrick, finally, you're on my show.
We made it. Thank you for having me.
So Patrick and I have been trying to do this, but Patrick is that devoted father. And so the times that he had to miss were all good reasons to take care of those kiddos and things. So that's awesome. I love that. My husband actually was a school teacher, and in the summers, we didn't put our kids in daycare or camps and things. My husband was the dad, the stay-at-home dad all those times. And it really builds, it's almost like a gift that I wish all fathers would have, because it really builds a long-term, strong relationship with your kids, both girls and boys. My kids were both girls, but it's great to have that relationship with your kids and not realize as they're walking down the aisle to get married or get their diploma, oh my God, I missed all that time.
Yeah, it's crucial, in my opinion, to really pour into your kids as much as possible, because like you said, that time is so short. It goes by so quickly. The days are long, but the years are short, right? So it definitely, it goes by in a flash. And I missed a lot of my oldest son's early years trying to build the multiple businesses that I had to go through with the closures and switching industries and all of that. So after that, I really devoted a lot of time to being there, being present with my family. And especially over the last year and a half or so, I've doubled down on that. And through the transition and transformation with my mindset and really who I am, they have now become, not that they weren't before, but they've become even more of a priority. And my goal and my job is to be a servant leader to them. So I have to pour into them, like I said, as much as possible and give them everything that I can so that they can have, I have 3 boys. So I have to show them exactly what a man should be, how he handles his business, how he loves his family, how he serves his family. For the longest time, I wasn't doing that. I was being what I like to say a man child, because I was selfish. I was focused on my needs and how I felt versus really giving them everything that they should have received. So it's been a good transformation, and I've seen the direct impact on my family and our relationships and the way my kids' behavior has improved. And that's really what pushed me to want to help others do the same thing, because I know there's a lot of guys that are in the same, guys and gals, right, that are in the same kind of position where they're trying to build business, they're trying to support their family, thinking that you can do it while they're young because they won't remember. And really, it should be the opposite.
Yeah.
Especially in those early years, we should be there as much as possible because those are so crucial in their development. And so that's one of my main driving forces is really to help others achieve that same kind of relationship and leadership with their family.
There's a whole lot of areas that we can go from there, but I do want to ask that simple question I always ask first. Just tell everybody where you call home. Where do you live?
I'm in Queen Creek, Arizona.
Arizona.
Yeah, we moved out here in 2019. Both my wife and I were born and raised in San Diego, California.
Oh,
So we've been here about 4.5 years now, almost 5.
Very good. So when you talk about being there for your kids, one of the things that I do is I teach leadership and speaking to the youth. And the reason I do that is because so many of the 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds that I work with have all this baggage from when they were young, and they didn't have that confidence because of what was said to them or how they were treated or ignored in some cases as they were growing up. And, I tell a story about my dad worked 3 jobs when I was growing up, until my teens almost. And he didn't allow my mom to go to work. So she had 6 kids at that time, eventually 7. But he didn't want her to work. So he chose that he needed to be the breadwinner. And he had a postman and then 2 other jobs. So I never saw my dad that much for a long time. We would go on a 1-month vacation, and that's when we got to know my dad. But later, it was probably around 9 or so, 10 maybe. My dad, I was probably younger than that. But anyway, my dad took us on the mail route. I'm sorry, USPS, you're not allowed to do that. But and I saw these kids chasing after my dad. Mr. Jim, Mr. Jim. And I thought, why are they chasing after my dad? And he's joking with them and caring. And I thought, who is this person? And that made me look at my dad differently and get to know my dad more. And now, what I saw as my dad as a granddad, he was the guy that was the kids were chasing after because he had time. He had time to be there, to be present. So all you dads out there that are working crazy, remember that story, because you want your kids to just love you like you're a grandparent. Yeah. So,
It's hard because as the man, as the husband and leader of the family, one of your primary roles is to provide for the family, right? And you have to cover basic needs. And a good man will do whatever he has to do that. And a lot of times, especially back in the day, it meant working multiple jobs and not being home a lot. And so it's a hard balance, right? You have to provide for the family, but you also want to be there, but it can't be at the detriment of your family. So it's a definitely a difficult task, a difficult balancing act to be able to provide and pour into your family at the same time. So it's gotten a lot easier, I think, these days with remote positions, remote jobs, and that kind of thing, where you can work from home. And so you can kind of do both at the same time. But definitely back in the day, it was a very difficult thing to be present as much as probably most dads felt they needed to be, while also providing a standard of living that they felt their family deserved. So
Well,
it's a hard
and
thing to do.
I think too, it was a cultural thing.
Mhm.
It's what my dad's dad and his dad's dad, and went on, and it wasn't until later on that we saw that it wasn't a bad thing for the dad to be present and doing things, and um, so I think that again, for the kids to really be self-confident, there are things that they have to do to and examples they need to see to really build that confidence and self-esteem.
100%. Yeah, you need both parents, right? Because a mom can't raise a boy to a man because she doesn't know what it is to be a man. And just like a dad can't raise a daughter to be a woman because that's not his personal experience. So you need both to give that child the full education and full example of how to live properly as an adult.
Yeah. And for those single parents out there, that's where people that do things like you and I do come in handy, because you have that sounding board of that perspective of the female or the male to fill the gap that is there.
Very much so. Yeah, and that's got to be even harder, right? To
Yeah.
not have the option to have the other influence be there consistently and showing, the daughter or the son how an adult handles their business and really is supposed to act and perform their roles and responsibilities. So that is a great point, that there are resources available. There are options for people in those situations, but it doesn't make it easier, right? You still
No,
have to
no.
find time to be able to do those things. And a lot of times you're not able to, right? Because now you're the provider, you're the leader, you're the mom, the dad, all wrapped up in one. And so you have a finite amount of time every day. So it's definitely again a difficult task, a difficult balancing act. But there are some options, some support available for those that are able to find at least a version of balance,
Mm,
right?
right. So one of the things that attacks our self-confidence is how we look. And, and this also goes back to our childhood a lot of times, where we may have eaten away our pain or
Mhm.
anxiety, frustration, even, and started to think of that's the only time I'm happy is if I have that piece of pie or cookie or brownie. Um, so now you look in the mirror and you think, well, this is not the person that I normally would think I would see anymore. That you're a much different person. So how do you lose the fat and add lean muscle mass at this point? Because I think it's not just changing your diet. So talk to us about this.
Well, a lot of it, I mean, the nuts and bolts of it is going to be diet, but there's a big mental component of it as well, right? And a lot of times people have a hard time keeping their word to themselves. Look at New Year's resolutions, right? I'm going to go to the gym every day and I'm going to work out and I'm going to eat right. And 2 or 3 weeks into the year, most of those people have fallen off and they've quit on themselves. And so that erodes your self-confidence even more so because you're not keeping your word to yourself. So one of the main things that I preach to my people, my audience is, if you can't keep your word to yourself, how are you going to keep it to somebody else? So we have to start with ourselves. And it can be as simple as, I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock tomorrow. And then when your alarm clock goes off, you don't hit snooze. You don't give yourself 5 more minutes. You get up when your alarm clock goes off. Simple, really, but it's a simple building block. And so now, okay, at 6 o'clock, I got up. Right. So maybe tomorrow I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock and then go work out at 6:15 or 6:30 or whatever time. And you do this. And now you're reprogramming your subconscious mind
Mm,
to know, like, okay, Patrick is is doing what he says he's going to do. He's keeping his word, and that starts to build the confidence. And the more you rinse and repeat, the more confidence you build. And the longer you go into this process, you're going to start to see the physical changes. And now that pours gas on that fire, because you're seeing the results of your dedication and of your discipline that you're building is actually being reflected in your appearance, right? So your appearance is really a reflection of your internal state, your mental state. So you can tell how well somebody has it together, their discipline, their self-confidence, by their external appearance. And when you start to see the changes and the positive changes of you starting to drop some fat, maybe build a little bit of muscle, it adds, like I said, it adds more gas to that fire. And so it kind of builds that momentum, and you keep going, and you eventually get to the goal, right? But the goal really should not be the goal. The goal should be to fall in love with the process, to fall in love with the work. Because if you set a goal, and most people set a goal and say, I want to do this in 6 months, when they don't necessarily hit it in 6 months, they get discouraged and kind of fall back to their old self that they didn't like in the first place. So you really have to love the process and really not have a timeline for your goal, because eventually, as long as you're doing the work day after day, you will achieve that goal.
Yeah.
That's not just for fat loss or muscle building, right? That applies to anything.
Yeah.
So if we fall in love with the process and do the work and really just keep our head down and doing this day after day, you're going to build that self-confidence. You're going to build that self-trust, because you're keeping your word to yourself. And then you're going to start to see the physical changes if we're talking about weight loss or muscle building. And again, that's going to keep that momentum going even more and more. And then it just becomes a habit, and your disciplined habits, you just do them because that's what you do now. And it's a part of you. And really, because you've kept your word for so long to yourself, and you're seeing the physical changes and the positive benefits of being disciplined, you have that self-confidence. And really, that work that you're putting in on yourself instills that self-worth. That's one of the biggest things that I learned, is the more we work on ourselves, the more worth we have, because we understand the amount of energy and time and effort that we're putting into building ourselves up. That builds that self-worth and that self-confidence, because you know you're putting in work daily to get better. And it doesn't have to be a huge jump day after day, right? But if you're getting 1% better day after day, that confidence is going to go through the roof, and you're going to end up building a mindset that, what I like to say is, it's unbreakable, right? My wife randomly at age 44 caught epilepsy. Didn't know that was a thing. And so it's been a crazy last 6 months. It happened out of the blue. But had this been a year and a half ago, I would have been a mess mentally. I wouldn't have been able to be there for my kids and be as strong. What I like to say is, be that lighthouse in the storm, where you're constantly shining your light. No matter what's going on around you, people can look to you and they know you're going to be there. And that's all because I put the work in on myself day after day after day for 18 months or so now. And I know that I'm a rock for my family. I will not be swayed. And I can see the effects on my kids. They looked to me when that stuff was going down. And because I was calm, they were much more calm. Had I been a mess, it would have been a rough, not that it wasn't, but it would have been even more of a rough thing. We would have had more emotions in the mix. And we all know when emotions get involved, stuff goes a little bit haywire. So that day after day, 1% better is really how you build that self-confidence and trust in yourself.
Yeah, trust in the process too. That
100%.
know that you'll do that. I know with my weight management system that I have, we don't measure our weight. We take measurements of our body, because what happens is you lose inches much faster than you do the pounds. And so if you're only looking at that scale, it's easy to not trust the process. But whenever you start to see inches go away and clothes are fitting better, and you notice those things, now then you start to trust in the process and have more confidence, I guess.
Absolutely. And you're right. The scale can lie at times, because depending on where your starting point is, you could be building muscle and losing fat at the same time. And muscle weighs more than fat.
It does.
So
It does.
build a little bit of muscle and lose a big chunk of fat, and your weight could stay the same. But like you said, how do your clothes fit? Do they feel looser in certain areas? How's your energy? Because if you're training right and you're eating right, your energy is going to go through roof.
Yeah.
So you have to use other factors, other measurements, like you said, you know, your waist, your arms, your thighs, whatever it might be. Are those changing? And if they are, then you know you're doing the right things. And if they're not, then you can adjust, right? And maybe try something different, which will help you get back on course and really build that confidence up.
So in this time, as you're really coaching yourself as well as your sons and others to have that strong, unbreakable mindset. But I think it's important too to give yourself grace, to understand there are times when you will fall, you will fail, you'll have a bad day. But I guess it's that system, that process that you set in place is what helps you get back up.
Absolutely. For me, I don't allow myself to have bad days. I will change. It's all thought process, right? All your mindset. So and I'm not immune to having a negative mindset for a period of time, but there's ways to pull yourself out of it. And if you sit in it and you're in the storm and you're just sitting there, it's going to get worse. That's how it is for everybody, right? You're going to see the negative and you're going to attract more negative because you're in a low frequency state. And when you're in those states, you shouldn't be searching for the answers to life or anything like that, because you're never going to find it. But there are ways to pull yourself out of that and push yourself back into a positive mental attitude. And the way that I've found that works best is to really do some kind of activity, of physical activity, right? A peak physical exertion pushes you into a positive mental attitude. So that can be anything that's going to get your blood pumping, right? If you're doing, let's say, push-ups or air squats, or go for a walk, something that's going to get the blood moving so that it gets oxygenated. And then when it hits your prefrontal cortex, that part of the brain, that's when you get that, what they call the flow state. And that's where the positive mental attitude comes in. And that really pulls you out of that negative mindset, that negative state, quicker than you would expect, right? It's very, very quick. As soon as you start breathing heavily, your problems kind of go away. You don't really care too much about that stuff anymore. Now you're looking for the positive. Okay, yeah, that was a bad situation, but what's the positive in it? Where can I find that little piece of positive that I can use as leverage to push myself further? Can I learn from it? What can I learn from it? And how can I use that to make myself better? So there are definitely ways to get out of that negative mindset. It's not a permanent situation unless you allow it to be. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that I have to help my clients understand is you're going to have adversity. You're going to have negativity in your life. That's just how it is. What you can control is your mindset, your attitude, and how you act in those situations. And really, if we focus on that, it doesn't matter what happens externally, because you're in control of your thoughts, and your thoughts are going to dictate how you feel. So again, that's why I use that physical exertion to push into that flow state, because when you're in the flow state, everybody's heard of the runner's high, or after you go for a workout, you feel good, your mindset's ready to go, and you're like, I'm on point right now. That's what you get by doing that physical exertion. And so it's very, very hard. And for me, I've never been negative after a workout. I always feel good. And that's really one of the main reasons why we do the workouts, is for the mental clarity and the mental benefits. Fat loss is done 90% through nutrition. Muscle building is obviously through the training and working out, but the mental benefits, the clarity, not necessarily aggressiveness, but that I'm ready to go, I want to do everything kind of mindset, comes from the training. And that's really how I'm able to, and my clients are able to pull themselves out of a negative situation.
Yeah. And even if you take it not as a negative situation, but I know for me, whenever I'm stuck, blocked with an idea or a problem and I'm trying to solve it, for me, if I do housework, or as you said, take a walk, but a lot of time, housework where you're doing scrubbing the floor, where it takes no brain power. It is just allowing your brain to have that emptiness to fill with ideas, and you solve your problems much faster than if I sat in my chair in front of my computer or paper trying to figure out what the answers were.
Again, and it's because you're doing physical activity, right? You're shifting the brain focus away from this situation here to, oh, I got to do this, I'm doing that, here you go. And next thing you know, that negative situation isn't a thing
Yeah.
right now because you're focused here. And then when you come back to it, you were like, oh, eureka, I found it. This is what I need to do. And again, it's that peak physical performance or exercise or whatever it is, something where you're doing a physical activity. Scrubbing the floor is a great one. Vacuuming, you're going back and
Yeah.
forth. Something like that is going to help you significantly, just like you said.
Yeah. I used to, now I'm really dating myself because if I say this word, a lot of people out there won't even know what I'm talking about. But in ironing, there was a machine called a mangle that you use to iron large flat things like pillowcases, sheets, and things like that. And you just put it through this machine, and again, it's mindless. The only thing I had to do is make sure my hands didn't get stuck in the mangle. But it was a great time, where sometimes hours, where I was doing this task that allowed me to be really, I think it's what helped me become this old soul that I was when I was a teenager, because I spent all those times doing things like that.
Sure.
So I think a lot of people also struggle, especially retirees, or people that are in a job that they don't really resonate with anymore. They get stuck, and I think part of it is because they haven't identified what their true purpose is. So how do you get aligned and find your true purpose?
Well, I believe that everybody has let's call it like a foundational purpose, right? And that's to create the best version of themselves and give that person to their family, to their tribe, to their circle, right? So back to that personal development, we need to work on ourselves. And by going through that process, you will create that best version of you. And then you're going to find something that makes you, I guess, feel good, right? Like you're doing these things and you're serving your people. And through that, and listening to your conscience, especially, it's going to direct you to where you want to go. For me, it was really sitting and kind of being calm for a little bit after going through my training, going through my morning process, and just sitting and listening and doing some praying and some meditation and listening to my conscience that allowed me to understand that this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to become the best version of me and then give that guide to my family, right? Be the best
Yeah.
dad I can be for my kids, be the best husband I can be for my wife, be the best leader I can be for my family, and then help others do the same, right? So we have to heal our own trauma, and then we can show others to do the same. So if you have some kind of issue, which most of us do from childhood, I don't think anybody gets up, without some kind of trauma, small or large. But when you work on yourself and you confront that issue that you have and you're able to overcome it, now you can show others how to overcome their issues. You can show others how to heal themselves. And by doing that, it not only gives you that sense of joy and peace because you're helping others, but you're really positively impacting the world. So that whole time of sitting and listening to your conscience, it can go a numerous amount of ways for somebody, right? But that, along with the training and really personal development, that was what worked for me. It helped me find God's purpose for my life. And I think a lot of people don't really listen. Like I ignored what my conscience told me for the longest time, right? For 39 years of my life, 38 years of my life, I just did what I wanted to do. I was trying to make money and whatever the latest, coolest thing was. And it wasn't until I sat and really did some introspection and listened to what that internal voice was telling me that I got aligned as soon as I started listening to it and said, you need to work on yourself. You need to be better. You need to be an example. And really by doing that, it all kind of fell in line and got into alignment there. So I would recommend people take time to work on themselves. And through that process, you will find out what it is that your purpose is or that you were created for. And especially that time of just sitting in silence. And it doesn't have to be a long period. It could be 10, 15 minutes maybe. And you just kind of let your thoughts go, right? And you will hear, I say hear, but you'll hear a voice that's telling you, go this way. And so you'll try and go that way, and you'll see different things that are going to fall into alignment with that. And then you know that you're walking down the right path. So it's really based off of personal development.
So time has flown by. I can't believe it. We really have touched on all the different aspects of building confidence and trust and being that best version of yourself. I love that. And that, as you said, is not something that is a one and done. It is a forever, ever, ever going on.
It's
And
lifelong.
I believe that if you want to find the fountain of youth, it is always having a purpose. And that purpose, as you have a purpose, then you do walk the walk self-confidently, and understanding that even if you fall, you can get back up. Even if you have a trauma like your wife getting epilepsy, you can handle it. And the example that you're setting for other people that you support will be the support that you need as well.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So let me share my screen for those that are just listening. You should run and grab a paper and pencil so you can write down the website information or the contact information for Patrick. So Patrick can be found on Instagram, and the Level Up Dad is where you're going to search. The Level Up Dad on Instagram. Patrick, tell them about what your call to action is for them.
Sure. So I document in the stories function of Instagram. I document my daily process. I show how I get up in the morning, through the training, through my whole day. And that's really with the intention of showing what can happen when you live the pillars that I preach, when you live in alignment with your purpose. And then on my main page, I post more of some of my training, so you guys can see how we should be working out, because a lot of people don't actually work out the right way. I also post more of what I call my preachings and my teachings. So my tenets, my beliefs, some motivational kind of topics as well, because a lot of us do need some inspiration, do need some motivation. So I try and really provide as much value as possible in terms of mindset, nutrition as well, training, all of that I publish out there so that people can take from it what they need. Some people don't know nutrition very well, so I try and put out as much information on that as possible. Same thing with working out. And then again, mindset, because this is always about mindset, right? It all comes back to that. So that's a main theme that you will see on my page, is different aspects of building the mindset up and really fulfilling your roles and responsibilities. It comes from a guy's perspective, so I talk to guys a lot, but the principles still apply to everybody. It's going to be different roles and responsibilities. I get that, but we still all have roles and responsibilities that we're responsible for. And really my goal is to push people to their full potential so that they can live the life and create the life that they feel they deserve and their family deserves.
So true. So Patrick, it's been such a wonderful time chatting with you, having this great conversation. And such an important topic. There are so many people out there that don't have self-confidence and that don't trust. And I thought that this would be a great way for us to talk about what we can do to get to become that person that does live with purpose and then becomes the self-confident individual that you always want to be.
Yep. And that's it, right? Keep your word to yourself.
That's
and
right.
Build your confidence. That's the base layer, the foundation of building that confidence and trust.
Yeah. All right. So it is time now for me to say goodbye to Patrick. But as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.